Hey guys, I might be seeming a little bit out of it and getting a bit tired of doing these show off every single one thing kind of videos. I'm not gonna stop, but you know, I just kinda gotta get that out there. This is a list of every single spell used inside of this video, because today we're going through every single onmyo magic spell. Hopefully I didn't miss any. Anyways, as always, if you guys got any requests, put them in the comments. I'll respond to you and see if I can do it for you. Without further ado, we'll get through every single one of these. I am doing this commentary like after the video, but like all at once, so I'm just going to name what the spells are and what they do. Or maybe just forget what the names are and say what they do anyways. Anyways, first up, the elemental talismans. Change your weapons element from fire to water to lightning. There's also purification, but that's later in the list, so we'll get there when we get there. Either way, you do bonus damage depending on what element you chose, as well as slowly applying that specific elemental debuff. For example, fire, you can inflict burn if you do enough hits. Now we have the elemental shots, which you just cast a spell and it will do damage of that pure element with no physical point of it involved. Also, very quickly applies the debuff, as you see. Next, the elemental resistances, or the elemental stops as they're called. These just cut your elemental damage that you take down by a shit ton, and they also make it to where you cannot have that specific debuff affect you whatsoever. So if you get caught on fire, you don't take any damage at all from the fire. Well, at least you know the passive. Alright, now we got the majority of debuffs everybody uses. Sloth, which cuts your opponent's speed in half. Devigorate, which cuts your opponent's attack in half. In fact, probably even more than that. Weakening, which does a huge damage to your opponent's defense. And then finally Lifesteal, which makes it to where it's almost impossible for them to regenerate stamina. Use that in human enemies, like bosses, and you can actually kill them really easily. Alright, so this one is specifically to show you how quickly your ki regenerates without. And then let's take a little bit of ki damage here. As you can see, ki regenerates almost instantly upon having the barrier talisman activated. And it also dispels yokai realms simply by touching them, as you can see there. Alright, I think we're going to use protection here. This is the steel talisman. This one cuts all damage you take in half. As you've seen by the damage I had taken, let's take another full combo. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's exactly half the damage I had taken before, so that's that. Next up is the resistance talisman. This is showing you that their grab inflicts the poison debuff upon you, and then if I put the resistance talisman on, I can either be poisoned or paralysis, so it won't even do absolutely any of the debuff to me. As you can see, I'm not even affected. Alright, next up is regeneration. Take a little bit of damage to show this off. It does a passive regen that once you activate it, you can kind of do whatever you want. You'll constantly be healing. It's only a little bit, but hey, it's pretty useful. Alright. This time we're actually using protection. Yeah, it's actually called protection this time, not the steel talisman. This makes it to where a specific amount of damage you take is reduced to 0. And, well, that's about as obvious as it can get. Doesn't work on elemental damage, though. Keep that in mind. Alright, this is showing that this weapon has max familiarity. In order to activate this specific spell, you have to have at least 300 familiarity on your weapon. Upon activating it, you do a literal shit ton of magic damage, just pure normal magic damage to your opponent, but it does cause it to where you lose all of your familiarity on that weapon. Keep in mind that my magic stat is 30 for all of these, and that did almost 5,000 damage. Alright, next up we have the Oasis Talisman. This is like regeneration, but more specific on when you're going to want to use it, and heals way quicker. And can also heal allies without any other type of buffs, like the extension for the regeneration spell. As you can see, Oasis, you place a circle, rapidly heals you and any teammates who step inside the circle. If you exit the circle, you will not be healing whatsoever, or you can just go back and start healing again. Doesn't last too long, but plenty useful. Next up is Shockwave. This makes it to whenever you perform a key pulse, you will do a small amount of damage to everything around you. The main point of this is to manage to keep your opponent's stamina going down, or just knock them down in general, or just give you some like safe protection while you're trying to keep pulse. Alright, this time we're showing off the Divination Talisman. This one increases your, sight, I guess. Basically what it does is allows you to see everything on your minimap. Kodamas, Amrita, Treasure, and in this case, as you can see, now that I've activated, I can see the enemy on the minimap. Alright, this is the Luck Talisman, I think? Kind of hard to explain luck, but basically it just makes it to where whenever you get an item from a drop, it's one rarity higher than it would have been. Alright, much easier to explain. The Guardian Talisman. This summons your Guardian Spirit to perform their unique Guardian Spirit attack. I already have a video on all the different Guardian Spirit attacks, with each one of them having different effects. For example, my favorite slows down the opponent greatly. Next up is the Palladius Talisman. This is much easier to explain than literally luck. This just makes it to where the amount of Amrita needed to fully charge your gauge is decreased a lot. This is the Extraction Talisman. As you can see, that basically did nothing when it comes to getting Amrita, but now if I single attack, I'll get some Amrita per hit. Alright, next up is the Carnage Talisman. This is the amount of damage I take normally. And with the Carnage Talisman, as you can see, I take a shit ton more, because it lowers my defense. 1, 2, 3... Takes 3 hits to kill with the Carnage Talisman with a low stance. And as you can see, without the buff from the Carnage Talisman, it will take me 4 hits, as I'm doing an average of around 500 damage instead of an average of 900. For this one, we're going to have to take off our weapon. This one is much easier to show off. Talisman of the Fist. This greatly increases your basic attack damage with just your fist. As you can see, I'm not even going to count the number of hits it takes to kill this guy. You can do it yourself, but I do around an average of 250 per hit. So, as you can see, it takes a living shit ton. However, if I were to activate the Talisman of the Fist, this increases my fist damage by so much. I think it's around 4 to 3 times? About 3 times as much damage. Yeah, it took 3 hits to kill him that time, so much easier to show off. I didn't even show off the Wealthbringer talisman. If anybody's wondering, it just increases your money. This talisman is going to be the Purification talisman? Yeah, that's what it's called. So I had to look that up very quick. This just gives you the Purification buff on your weapon. Alright, much more fun here. This is the Cutting Blast talisman, which makes it to where all your heading attacks, or heavy attacks, do, air blast. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of natural for me to say. Yeah, it can be used to do bonus damage, or they could just be used to, as a long-range attack, basically. Next up is the Gust Talisman. This negates all damage from bombs and other explosives, as well as reflecting any type of thrown projectile or projectile fired from a ranged weapon like arrows, bullets, etc. As you can see, it just bounced the shuriken back there. Alright, another one of my favorites right here. We have the Leech Life Talisman, not to be confused with the Lifesteal Talisman, which you would think be the other way around, but yeah. Basically, you will cast a spell onto an enemy, and then any type of attack performed on the enemy will cause them to drop green orbs that restore your HP. Alright, next up we're going to be showing the Ki Burst Talisman. Unlike the Ki Pulse Talisman that just does a shockwave, this does a gigantic shockwave that does a shit ton of damage at anything around you. This is the Geyser Talisman, firing 3 geysers of water at your opponent. Fire Blast Talisman. It's just a very big projectile with decent tracking that does a lot of fire damage. Alright, this is another very fun one. The Sensory Overload. This one can be triggered upon 3 things happening to your opponent after you have cast it on your opponent. First up, killing your opponent. Causes them to explode. Next up is your opponent going into a downed state. In other words, anything that would allow you to perform a finishing blow on them will cause a second wound. So as you can see, 1 good attack plus a couple of rocks. And humans have a desperation attack which puts them in a down state if they miss it. They blow up! And then finally catching them on fire, then having this on them. So they blow up, then they blow up again. Thunderstorm, it's like the geyser, but for thunder. Alright, this one's going to be fun. By using the Kasuragama, I can increase entire attack, but make it to where I may take more ki damage. However, with this talisman, I am able to negate all positive and negative buffs, including ones that would be added after the spell is activated. Alright, next up, this is another one where you have to have a familiarity stat of 300 to use it. However, for some reason there is a glitch in the game right now that makes it to where your weapon will not lose the familiarity on it. I'm showing that it would take 3 attacks doing around 500 damage to kill him. And then as I activate this one, I think it's called the Soul Purge, yeah. This increases your attack like the Carnage Talisman, and still takes 3 hits, but my attacks do an average of 900 now, which is much better. And I also get a luck buff. If you don't know what luck does, I am not going to try and explain that, because luck is a really weird thing, and all I know is it increases your drop rate. Alright, Blessed Arrow. These literally create an arrow of pure magic. As you can see, it even has the elements of an arrow, to target your opponent's weak spot, then hit. Alright, the Fire Familiar Talisman. Just being next to your opponent does the fire debuff as well as fire damage to them. And performing a heavy attack will cause one of the 4 fireballs to go flying at your opponent, doing a bunch of fire damage as a projectile. Arch Yokai. You get the gauge that allows you to perform yokai abilities much quicker. Alright, these are the elemental bombs. They work like the elemental shots, except you fire a little shikigami paper that stays on the ground and will attack with that specific element. Fire, water, lightning. Personally, I prefer to just use the geyser or the blast, but some people do prefer the bombs. Though there is one very cool thing you can do with the elemental bombs that I'll show off after showing each one of the elements. As you can see, they stick around. Alright, now, put every single one of the elemental bombs together. Then have an enemy walk anywhere near them. Rainbow Death! That's really fun to do on bosses. Alright, finally, the Earth Folding Talisman does absolutely nothing. Alright, thank you guys all for watching, means a lot. I know I haven't been as enthusiastic in this video, but hey, thanks for watching. Alright, I'm kidding. The Earth Folding Talisman does do something. It lets you teleport to the last shrine that you actually prayed at for an absurdly high amount of magic cost. There is a common item that you can get called Travel Item, as you can see right here, that does the exact same thing. Well, as you can see, the ultimate magic is literally useless. Anyways, once again, thank you guys all for watching. I'm sorry I wasn't as enthusiastic and not as great as explaining things today, but just needed to get this out there. So, yeah, if you got any more suggestions, go ahead and tell me, and see you next time.